The old mansion stood tall and imposing, surrounded by a dense forest that seemed to engulf it like a hungry beast. It had been abandoned for years, and the rumors that surrounded it were as numerous as they were terrifying. Some said that the family who had lived there had been cursed, others that a series of gruesome murders had taken place within its walls. Whatever the truth, there was an unmistakable sense of dread that hung in the air around the mansion. One night, a group of friends decided to investigate the mansion. They were thrill seekers, eager to explore the dark and foreboding interior of the house and to uncover its secrets. They parked their car on the edge of the forest and made their way towards the mansion, their footsteps crunching on the dry leaves beneath their feet. As they approached the front door, they were surprised to find it ajar. They hesitated for a moment, but their curiosity got the better of them and they pushed it open. The inside of the mansion was just as eerie as they had imagined. The air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling and the walls were covered in peeling wallpaper. Despite the obvious signs of neglect, there was an eerie sense of life to the mansion. The sound of footsteps echoed through the empty rooms, and the flicker of candlelight could be seen in the shadows. The group pressed on, drawn deeper into the heart of the mansion by an unseen force. As they explored the mansion, they found themselves in a large ballroom. The room was opulent, with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and a polished dance floor in the center. The group split up, each exploring a different part of the room. Suddenly, one of the friends let out a scream. The others rushed over to where she was standing and saw her pointing at a painting on the wall. The painting depicted a beautiful woman with long dark hair and piercing green eyes. Her dress was torn and stained with blood, and her expression was one of pure terror. The group stared at the painting in horror, wondering who the woman could be and what had happened to her. As they turned to leave the room, they heard a faint whispering coming from behind the painting. They hesitated for a moment before one of them bravely stepped forward and pulled the painting aside. Behind it, they found a hidden room. The room was small and cramped, with barely enough room for all of them to stand. In the center of the room, there was a small table with a single candle burning on it. The group approached the table and saw that there was a piece of paper lying on it. The paper was old and yellowed, with faded ink that was difficult to read. As they struggled to make out the words, they suddenly heard a low growling sound. They looked up and saw a pair of glowing red eyes staring at them from the darkness. The growling grew louder, and the eyes grew closer. The group turned and ran, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they ran through the mansion, they could hear the sound of something chasing them, its claws clicking on the hard wooden floor. Finally, they burst out of the front door and into the night. They looked back at the mansion and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was a woman, with long dark hair and piercing green eyes. Her dress was torn and stained with blood, and her expression was one of pure terror. The group turned and ran, their feet pounding on the ground as they fled from the mansion. As they ran, they could hear the woman's screams echoing through the night. They never spoke of the mansion again, vowing to never return. The group ran blindly through the forest, their hearts pounding in their chests. They didn't stop until they were miles away from the mansion and the safety of their car. Breathless and panting, they gathered together to discuss what they had just seen. They were all shaken, unsure of what they had witnessed inside the mansion. They all agreed that they needed to investigate further, to try and make sense of what they had experienced. With a newfound determination, they returned to the mansion the next night, armed with flashlights and weapons. They entered cautiously, the air thick with the scent of decay and the sound of their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. As they made their way through the mansion, they heard a low, growling sound that seemed to be coming from all around them. Suddenly, the doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. The group was terrified, trapped in the dark mansion with no way out. They tried to find another way out, but every door was locked tight and every window was barred. Panic began to set in, and they started to realize that they might never escape. As they searched for a way out, they began to hear strange whispers and moans coming from the darkness. They tried to ignore them, but they grew louder and more insistent, filling the air with a sense of malevolence. Suddenly, one of the friends disappeared. They searched frantically, but there was no trace of him. They realized that they were not alone in the mansion and that they were being hunted. The remaining friends huddled together, trying to stay calm in the face of their terror. They heard footsteps coming closer and they knew that they were running out of time. They decided to make a stand, to face whatever was coming at them. They barricaded themselves in a room, piling furniture against the door to keep whatever was out there at bay. They huddled together in the darkness, the sound of their own breathing the only thing they could hear. Suddenly, the door began to shake, as if something was trying to break through. They pressed themselves against the wall, their weapons at the ready, as they waited for the door to give way. With a deafening crash, the door finally broke open. The friends were blinded by a sudden burst of light, and they realized that they were not alone. The police had arrived, responding to a call from one of the friends who had managed to get a call out before they had been trapped. The friends were rescued, but they were never the same. They had all seen and experienced things that defied explanation, and they would never forget the terror they had experienced in the old mansion. In the end, the mansion was demolished, and the land it had stood on was declared cursed. No one ever spoke of the mansion again, and no one ever ventured into the forest at night for fear of what they might find. The mansion became nothing more than a distant memory, a ghostly relic of a time long past.